The bar was a far cry from the trendy upscale lounges I had imagined myself frequenting in my youth. The walls were adorned with tacky beer signs and sports memorabilia. The air was thick with the smell of stale beer and cheap whiskey. But it was here, slumped on a stool next to my friend Pete, that I felt most at home. Pete had been my best friend since college, and had always been there for me through thick and thin. He was the only person who knew about my secret obsession. "I think I've got it this time," I said, taking another sip of my beer. Pete shook his head, his eyes filled with concern. "Why are you doing this, man? I mean, I get it, it's cool. There's plenty of times I'd love to revisit, believe me. But why keep going back for this job?" I let out a sigh and ran my hand through my hair. "It's hard to explain," I said. "I just feel like if I had gotten that job, everything would be different. My life would be better. Things aren't great, you know, between me and Sheila, and I haven't seen my kids in ages. I don't know. They deserve better." I took another swig. "And if I had that job, I could give it to them. The stock options alone are worth so much now." Pete gave me a sympathetic look. "Yeah, but you have no way of knowing that getting that job would have changed anything. There's one thing we know for sure. You would have missed that date with Sheila. I've thought about this, okay? It would have been fine. I just would have rescheduled with her. Rescheduling with the company, however, just wasn't in my cards." "Well, how do you know that getting that job in general just wasn't in your cards?" Pete asked. I let out an exasperated sigh and pushed myself up from the stool, feeling a wave of dizziness wash over me. "Well, now you're just talking about fate, Pete, and there's no such thing. I've got a time machine. I've got all the cards I want. I've got a whole deck," I said, stumbling and catching myself on the bar surface as I sat back down. Pete shook his head, but didn't say anything else. We sat in silence for a few minutes. The only sound was the dull hum of the bar's TV in the corner. I took another sip of my beer, lost in my own thoughts. We sat there for hours, but all I could think of was getting home and trying again. I made my way out of the bar, the cool night air hitting my face as I made my way down the street. About 1 a.m. I stumbled through the door of my small dark house. It was eerily quiet. As I managed to make my way through the door, I flipped on the light switch. The darkness had been much better as I lifted my hands to cover my eyes. As I adjusted to the lighting, I saw a note on the empty dinner table. I hobbled over to the note, picking it up and reading the words on it slowly. "I'm staying at Mum's." I crumpled up the note as I let out a sigh, and placed the note to my forehead. If she only knew I was trying to fix things, none of this would matter. I felt a strong urge to go to the machine, but I knew I needed a clear mind if I wanted to make a good impression. With a heavy sigh, I made my way to the bedroom and collapsed onto the bed. As I opened my eyes, I could feel the warmth of the morning sun gently caressing my skin. I stretched my arms and legs, feeling the softness of the sheets beneath me. The bright light illuminated my cluttered room. For just a moment, I closed my eyes again and savored the tranquility. The sound of chirping birds outside my window filled the air, and I couldn't help but think that if only I could change things, perhaps I could hire a maid. A nice, clean room would make this moment perfect. I got out of bed as quickly as I could, pouring myself a bowl of cereal that I practically inhaled, and made my way into my study, which contained the machine. Can't have an interview on an empty stomach. I secured the straps tightly around my body, making sure the device was firmly attached to my chest. The helmet-like piece felt heavy as I placed it over my head. It was the most crucial part of the machine. The mechanics of time travel were not as complex as one might imagine. You couldn't jump into the future or visit places you'd never been. The device allowed you to travel back in time to any moment in your personal history, essentially transferring your consciousness to your former self. Your present mind would take control of your past self, allowing you to relive your experiences in real time. As the machine whirred to life, a sudden jolt coursed through my body like an electric shock. My surroundings melted away, replaced by a blur of colors and shapes that twisted and turned, coalescing into a new reality. I felt weightless, as though I were floating through a void, yet at the same time I was acutely aware of my body, every muscle tensed and ready for what lay ahead. As the chaos subsided, I found myself standing on the all-too-familiar Main Street 20 years in the past. It was disorienting, like waking up in a dream, but no matter. I looked down at my crisp black suit. This just won't do. It didn't work any of the other times. I looked at my watch. Yes, I was getting better at getting the timing right. I had 20 minutes to get to the interview, giving me time to walk into a nearby store and buy a new suit. Blue would work. "Don't forget your clothes," the shopkeeper called to me after I bought a nice new suit, with a look of confusion on her face as I walked out the door, leaving my old suit lying in the changing room. As I walked towards the building doors of the company, I saw a homeless man sitting against the building walls. I began to pat my pockets, searching for coins I knew weren't there. I paused for a moment at the doors, placing one hand on the doorknob, while the other slicked back my hair, and stepped through the door. I sat in the interview room, staring intently at the interviewer, as she asked me the same question I had heard so many times before. "Tell me about a time when you faced a difficult challenge in your work, and how you overcame it." I cleared my throat and began to answer. "Well, there was this one time when I was working on a project with a tight deadline and, I sneezed, right in the interviewer's face. Damn it, I thought. I snapped my fingers, the trigger returning my consciousness back into the present. I had to try again. I walked past the old homeless man, patting my pockets again. Sorry, I said half-heartedly. "Tell me about a time when you faced a difficult challenge in your work and how you overcame it," the interview asked. I looked at the interviewer and took a deep breath and gave a different answer this time. There was this project I was working on where the requirements kept changing and, well, I was always one step ahead. I thrive on change, I answered like the cat who swallowed the canary. That's not good enough, I thought. Time to try again. This time maybe a nice green suit, that would be nice. I walked by the homeless man again and said, "I'm sorry, man. I always forget change." "Tell me about a time when you faced a difficult challenge in your work and how you overcame it," the interviewer repeated. This time, I tried a different approach. "Well, I've never really faced a difficult challenge in my work. I've always been able to figure things out on my own." That has to do it, I thought, as I snapped my fingers. I opened my eyes in the same old cluttered room in a small house. Nothing has changed, I thought. Time to try this again. "Tell me about a time when you faced a difficult challenge in your work and how you overcame it," the interviewer asked yet again. This time, I gave a more honest answer. To be completely honest, I've had some personal issues in the past that have affected my work, but I've been working on improving myself and learning how to better handle stress and pressure. I opened my eyes to see the same room in the same house. I had to try again. I walked down the street lost in thought. The stresses of my job search had consumed me, and I barely noticed the world around me. That was until I noticed him up ahead, the homeless man sitting on the sidewalk, leaning against the building and laughing at something only he knew. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy. How could someone be so down on his luck and be happy? As I passed him, I stopped and stared down at him. He looked up and smiled at me. "How you doing, friend?" he asked. I almost didn't respond, caught off guard by his friendliness, but something in his eyes made me pause. "Not so great," I said, as I sat down next to the man. "I'm looking for a job and it's not going well." The man chuckled. Perhaps you're looking for the wrong one. I'll tell you something. You can spend your whole life looking for something special, and you'll waste it not looking at the special things you already have. I don't got much, but I got this moment right now, and that's worth more than anything else in the world, if you ask me. I rolled my eyes, thinking that this was some kind of platitude, but he continued. "See, I've spent a lot of time on this street, and I've developed this ability to read people. I get the feeling you're so caught up in what's next or what was that you're missing on what's happening right now. And when you've got a problem, you blame it on the past or something else out of your control rather than sitting down and dealing with it. You're missing on the beauty in the world and the people around you. You're missing the chance to make a real connection with someone, and that's a shame. My mind was racing. How could someone with so little offer so much wisdom? I don't know what to say, I said. I'll tell you this. It's an old saying. What's for ya won't go past ya, and that's a guarantee. Maybe you get this job, maybe you won't. But another thing will come along. Just keep your mind in the moment so you don't miss it when it does. I thanked the man as I stood up. As I walked away, I felt a sense of calm that I hadn't felt in ages. I still had worries and doubts, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could handle them, and I knew that I owed it all to that homeless man. I didn't walk into that interview, but if I had, I would have answered her question about facing a challenge at work with, I faced many problems like this in the past, and to be honest, I'm good at it. The part I struggle with is focusing on all my other work when I do get caught up with trying to solve a problem. I probably wouldn't have got the job, but it really didn't matter. I snapped my fingers and woke up. As I stepped out of the machine, the world around me seemed to spin for a moment as my eyes adjusted to the dimly lit room. I took a deep breath and stretched my arms, feeling the stiffness in my muscles from being seated for so long. The realization hit me that I had spent the entire day traveling through time. My mind was filled with a mix of emotions, nostalgia, regret, and a sense of longing for moments long gone. But not the ones I remembered, but the ones that I missed. As I looked down at my phone, I hesitated for a moment before dialing Sheila's number. I knew that things between us had been strained lately, and I wasn't sure if she would even pick up, but I needed to try. As the phone rang, my mind raced with the right words to say. I didn't want to repeat the mistakes of the past, and I knew that I needed to show her that I was ready to make a change. Hello? Her voice on the other end of the line was soft and tentative. It's me, I said, feeling a lump form in my throat. I know that things have been difficult between us, but I wanted to try and make things right. There was a long pause before she spoke again, and my heart raced with anticipation. I've been waiting for you to say that, she said, her voice crackling slightly. I miss you. As we talked, I felt a sense of hope begin to fill me. Maybe there was a chance for us to work things out. I knew that it wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a while, I felt like we were both willing to try.